It's been a minute since it's been time to go back into Star Rail, and with the brand new character releasing, which is Jade, it seems like a lot of people are just not excited for her. It seems like a lot of people are willing to skip because not only is Argenti here, but also the 4 stars aren't so great on the banner as well. And Jade has fallen into the same exact curse that her friend rerunning right now is under, which is she's just in the worst spot at the moment when it comes to not only brand new characters coming out in the future, but also because she just doesn't add anything else to the game that is needed. And for the characters that I guess you say are buffed from Jade being in the game, it isn't a substantial buff to the point where she's able to rise them to the top of the list again, when we have characters like Acheron, we have characters like Firefly, all these big hitter characters. So it kind of doesn't make sense to get a character that's just gonna buff minorly to those characters. We're gonna talk about that in a quick second. Before we get into all that, make sure you leave a like, comment, sub, all that different type of stuff, and let me know what your impressions of Jade are when it comes to the trial, when it comes if you summon for anything like that. I think a lot of people are saving for Yun Li and Jiao Shou, if I'm not wrong, that's how you say the name. But it seems like a lot of people are just not excited for this character. Now, one of the main things about this character that really stuck out to me was her supportive ability alongside her sub DPS. I think this is something I was super excited for because this gave someone like Topaz a more general sense of how to be used with more characters. Jade doesn't only buff up follow-up attacks just like how Topaz is, but she follows the same structure as Topaz just for a general buffer. She gives someone the boost of damage and speed when it comes to her supportive ability, and with that being said, you sacrifice a little bit of HP to give the stacks to Jade, which can be very strong in situations like Pure Fiction, where she's able to non-stop follow-up attack, where she's able to get these stacks up very quickly. And as you can see, she's able to ramp up fairly quickly with her follow-up attack, which is a pretty good thing. Now, we do have to also notice is that when this is done, when she's ramping up, the less enemies you have on field, the longer it's going to take to ramp up to its full potential. Another issue right now at the current moment that we see with Jade is just her damage is not it. Her damage, which is seeing 60 to 40Ks, when we have characters hitting the millions, hitting in the 300Ks, 400Ks with Super Break, there's just a lot of different options right now that you could go for that doesn't require this type of AoE and as much of a constant AoE when we're looking at modes like MOC and also Apocalyptic Shadow. We're looking at characters who now can work on many different roles, many different modes, and Jade is just a character that's just relegated again, which is sad to see, only Pure Fiction, which I really wanted a character that was erudition to be able to shine, and it just seems like we're not getting it at the current moment. And to talk about even more so what I was saying with buffing a character, making a brand new best in slot for them to have on the team, which is someone like Jade and Blade, this is a fantastic team. This is a team that's able to synergize off each other because not only does Jade get her stacks from AoE from Blade, his follow-up attack, his ultimate, all that different type of stuff. Really good stuff for Jade. Same thing with Blade, loves the speed boost, loves the HP drain, and also loves the damage boost as well. But the problem with this isn't inherently Jade's fault, but more so it is Blade's fault for the way he is. His scalings at the current moment and the teammates he's in with it comes to his best in slot team aren't going to push him into the levels where we see all these other DPS at the current moment. Boohill, when it comes to Firefly, Acheron, Don Hung, Jing Liu, these are still some massive characters around his time period and currently that he's just never going to match up to. And it's only because his scalings aren't as crazy and there's just not enough HP buffs for him to work around that as well. So he's really working on scraps when it comes to what he's able to slot in for his best in slot team. And for a character like Jade, who's only minorly going to bring him up in power, just isn't worth the investment. Same thing that goes for Argenti when he first released. He was around characters again like Jing Liu, like with characters like Don Hung. He just didn't seem like he was going to be a powerhouse and still wasn't going to be a powerhouse. Can he be used? Surely. Can he still go in MOC and actually wreak havoc because he has the ability to move all his damage onto one target? Yes, which is a really nice thing for him personally, but still doesn't give him the actual value that you would want from a character when it comes to them doing the damage and also being able to be thrown into every single mode. Now Jade is in this exact same situation, but I would say even worse because like I said, you have so many different team archetypes that are doing so well and output so much damage that there's no reason to pull for Jade at the current moment. You have Dot with Kafka, you have Akron with the Nihility team, Jingliu with the generic DPS team, Boo Hill with how insane he is with very low investment, Firefly being one of the most broken DPSs to come out in current time, and we still have so many more like Imbiber to Lene, who is absolutely insane for what they're able to provide in DPS, and Jade just doesn't have it in her. Especially looking at what exactly she thrives off of, which are characters who do a lot of AoE versus a bunch of different targeted characters. Now the problem with this inherently is that means she loves erudition characters. She loves characters that hit multiple targets at the same time. So this would go forward to characters like Himiko, characters like Herta, characters like Argenti, and this ends up pulling up another problem. These characters are historically not that great in MOC or Apocalyptic Shadows either. So that puts Jade in an even worse position because her best teammates don't do anything else besides be godly at pure fiction, which puts them in a bad situation. Every other character at the current moment, like the ones I listed before, Imbiber to Lune, Cele, Blade, all these other characters, I'm actually not saying Blade, but more like Boo Hill, Firefly, they can take so many other characters on their team that they don't necessarily need Jade. All these characters that have adjacent damage or have any other types of damage that does cover AoE, that only gives less stacks to Jade, but also could benefit from more characters that aren't Jade, with more dedicated supports. How we have like follow-ups for Robin, how we have Black Swan for Dot, how we have Ting Yun, Bronya, and Sparkle for hyper carry. There's just so many different characters, including Ruan Mei as well, that just end up being a better slot for your team than slotting in Jade. So where does Jade get put into? Well, only erudition teams and Blade, which Blade is historically, sadly, my favorite character in the game, just doesn't stand up to the test of time at the current moment versus a lot of the end game stuff in Star Rail. And then same thing goes for all the other characters. They just have their best in slot team at the current moment, and summoning for this brand new 5-star that has a lot of AoE damage isn't really needed when a lot of these characters like Akron, Kafka, Imbiber to Lene, Jingliu can one-shot or almost one-shot all these characters on their own with their best in slot team, with characters we've had for such a long time. Supportive characters at the current moment are still a hot commodity, and especially with Jade trying to take her slots into one of those supports, but also throw in her sub DPS, her being reliant on only one character is a very bad thing for her. I think if they wanted Jade to be absolutely insane, and I mean put out massive amounts of damage, they probably should have made her buff AoE. They probably should have made her buff apply to the whole team, which would have allowed her to be able to get non-stop follow-up attacks, do enough damage, because with little damage that she has right now with her scaling, they probably could have given her enough to be able to do not only 1, 2, 3, 4 follow-up attacks with that low amount of damage, and it builds up to be a good amount. Now she's not only useful in pure fiction, but she could also be useful at MOC, because now every single time an ally attacks with their basic attack or with their skill, with their ultimate, this allows Jade to get so many follow-ups, to get so much damage in, and it would help the DPS instead with giving that DPS increase, with giving that speed increase, and that would have been a really nice unit to have. Now, would it have been something greater than a lot of these other support characters we have in the game? Probably not. And this is the sad thing about it with Jade, that she just doesn't excel in any area that is needed at the moment. Every character in the game right now has their best in slot. Every team in the game has their best in slot team at the current moment, and Jade doesn't shine anywhere in regards to being a replacement for any character in the game. She's a brand new support for a team that didn't need it, which kind of sucks that that's the case with her, because I do think the mechanic of her boosting someone else up and also being able to benefit from them doing damage is a really nice mechanic. She just doesn't do enough damage, nor does she support enough to the point where it's worth taking off someone like Ting Yun, Sparkle, Bronya, Ruan Mei, Robin, all these omegally busted supports. So she kind of gets stuck in limbo with not being the best support in the world and also not doing enough damage to relegate her being on a team besides pure fiction. Now in pure fiction, she's going to be absolutely insane because you have characters like Herta, Himiko, you have Ruan Mei and Jade. That's probably infinite follow-ups. You're going to have Herta doing non-stop follow-ups after Himiko breaks. Himiko does her follow-up. Jade comes in, breaks more characters. There's just an endless amount of follow-ups you're going to get from that. But the possibility of seeing this in MOC, especially when you're not going against a character like Cyrus, who's able to bring in enemies non-stop, this puts her in a bad position, because as soon as you start dealing with enemies on MOC or Apocalyptic Shadows, they stay dead. They don't come back. This makes it so that Jade doesn't get as many stacks. Jade is not able to attack as much as she wants to be able to give out the damage that she should be doing with her low scaling already. So not only does she have to ramp up, which doesn't take a lot of time but can be slower if you're KOing enemies fast enough, she loses, I guess you'd say, impact over time in MOC. She's only preferable in one mode. This puts her in that spot where a lot of people just don't want to summon on. And it sucks to see that that's the case. I haven't had a character I was this, I guess you could say, not wanting to pull, because I kind of pull for every character because why not, you know? But for this character alone, I just see zero purpose for her to be used, and I still don't see any purpose for her to be used in the far future. I don't think in any way, shape, or form for Jade's sake she will just have a spot in any team. She will have a spot in regards to any DPS coming out, because I feel like a lot of the supports we have at the current moment already have that archetype filled up. And even if a new character comes out, a lot of these supports we have at the moment are very universal and don't need to be replaced because they give outstanding buffs and do some insane things with whatever comes out. So right now for Jade, she just stuck in limbo. Too, I would say, niche as a DPS and not overly crazy as a lot of the other supports in the game. That's the thing that sucks about Jade at the current moment, and something I'm kind of disappointed to the fact that we had this cool character concept in regards to buffing with sub DPSing with the characters, and it ends up falling flat because she doesn't do enough damage. She doesn't give enough support. She's, I should say, relegated to the amount of targets on the field, which get lower and lower in value as time goes by in a lot of different modes besides pure fiction. So seems like the erudition curse is real. If you see a character you really like and you see that erudition path mark, I guess it's time to pack it up. But other than that, that's pretty much it going to be for the video on Jade. I do want to make a couple more videos on her in regards to probably showcasing her potentially and talking about the meta overall. I think we're going to be looking at all that different type of stuff very, very soon. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. See y'all guys in the next one, and peace.